Chapter 18. Choices. Jake's consciousness is locked in a state of dreaming. Unable to fully awaken, his worst fears play over again and again. "Yamura, stop!" he screams. Yamura smiles, walking towards the Rigsby home. Gator and Sue stand on the porch, guns fixed on the Sakari. Behind the adults, Derek, Rusty, and Amy stand inside the doorway. "Don't come any closer," Gator shouts, holding up a pump-action shotgun. Yamura grins, raising a single hand. "Basaya," Yamura says, unleashing a concentrated pulse of black energy at the Rigsbys. Gator pushes his wife to the ground and is hit in the shoulder by the energy. He screams in pain, his flesh burning. The impact spins him around, slamming his back against the wall. Sue, still lying flat, levels her gun and fires. The gun is a high-powered rifle, and the sighting is meticulously checked daily by Gator for accuracy. The first shot hits Yamura square in the chest and knocks him off his feet. Gator leans against the block pillar holding the porch up. His chest heaves, and he sweats heavily. His right shoulder is raw, melted almost to the bone. "Dad!" Rusty shouts in concern. "Lock the doors, don't come outside," Gator orders. Yamura stands back up, digging the bullet out of his chest with his long claws. He drops the blood-covered piece of metal to the street and smiles. "You're much tougher than I thought." "I expected only the man to give me challenge," Yamura says, complimenting Sue's fierceness under pressure. "Stay away from my family, you piece of shit," Sue screams. Yamura rushes the porch, kicking Sue's arm as she fires again and causes her to shoot through the roof. Debris rains down on them, and Yamura grabs her by the throat. "You have failed to protect your brood," he grins, squeezing tightly. Gator attacks from behind, driving his Seals issue K-bar fixed-blade knife to the center of the Sakari's back. Yamura releases Sue and staggers a few steps back. Picking her rifle back up, she fires upwards, catching Yamura beneath the chin. He falls, most of his head blown off. Thick blood runs down the porch, turning the steps a deep red. Jake suddenly screams in agony, feeling every cell of his body being ripped apart. Jake's mind dreams, yet he cannot rouse himself from the true nightmare that is Yamura. "You dream of my death, but do you truly wish to die?" Yamura's voice echoes, reaching him in even the darkest corners of his mind. "Should I cease, so shall you." Jake is stuck, unable to awaken as he feels himself stretched into oblivion for eternity. He finally is able to come to, frightened beyond words. If this is what it feels like if Yamura is killed while controlling his body, then he's scared to even contemplate the scenario. He does not want Yamura to hurt anyone else, yet he really does not want to die either. Yamura stands on the roof of the school as the buses begin to arrive at 7:30 a.m. Danny rests beside him, leaning on an air conditioning unit. She's wearing sunglasses, a black mini dress, with full-length green leggings. Her hair is dyed green. She's in a light sleep, waiting for Yamura for over an hour now. Demons wake up too early, she thought before dozing off. Yamura is still wearing the clothes and leather jacket taken from the alley thugs the previous night. Jake's consciousness, still enclosed in a stone wall to block his thoughts from Yamura, tries to plan out his next move. "I was hoping that maybe I could regain control briefly while he slept, but this jerk hasn't even gotten tired yet. I'm starting to think that Sakari don't need to sleep. I made the big mistake of falling asleep before him. I don't think I could survive those nightmares again," Jake thinks in frustration. "Point his kin out to me," says Yamura, cutting through the silence sharply. "I will, but they haven't gotten here yet," Danny says, still half asleep. A black Ford pulls into the lot and 3 boys exit. Danny feels a light pressure on her chest. She stands up and looks over the edge. There. Those are his cousins. The biggest one, that's Mitch. The youngest, the one with the dirty blonde hair, that's Rusty. I don't know the name of the middle brother. The man driving's their father, Jake's uncle, says Danny. Yamura stares down at them in anticipation. He's filled with excitement at the thought of 4 of his targets gathered together in one spot. This will make hunting them down much quicker. His joy suddenly dies as soon as Rusty turns his head and reveals his face. Yamura gasps, frozen in horror. Through Yamura's sight, Jake sees Enkidu's face, shadowing Rusty's. He looks just like the human responsible for my imprisonment thousands of years ago. Only he's smaller. This one is but a child. Yeah, he's a snot-nosed little freshman, Danny replies, not catching the distress in Yamura's voice. Strange, though. He looks just like him. Something got you flustered? Jake's spirit taunts. Do not dare mock me. Yamura growls and balls his fists tightly. I return after all these years just to be planted in the same town as a descendant of the human who defeated me in the first place. This cannot be happening. This is not even the same continent that I arrived in originally. His descendant? Why didn't you realize it before from me? Because you are not his descendant. How? Rusty's my cousin. Fate has once again brought your 2 families together. I never would have guessed that your lines would eventually cross again, especially in such a similar matter. What? It is none of your concern. You are not the hero's bloodline, because you are the descendant of the human who opened the gates to my world for the first time. Our worlds were once connected, and then the Yazata erected a barrier. Your ancestor opened up a rift to allow us to pass into this realm 10,000 or so of your years ago. The one called Enkidu and a few of his allies fought our forces and eventually closed the portal. They then sealed the remainder of our strongest into those awful pendants. My ancestor started this mess? It seems all things come full circle. He was responsible for our entry into your world, and his descendant is now responsible for its final undoing. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I never allow the world to be destroyed. It's too late. You have already played your part. By having the evil in your heart, even for a second, you gave me the power over you. Then why haven't you destroyed me? Under normal circumstances, I would have, but it will take me reaching my full power to gain the ability to shed myself of you. Imprisonment has left me greatly weakened. Yamura looks back down at Rusty as he walks into the building. Killing him will keep you alive as well. He will try to kill us, and should he succeed, then your soul will be destroyed forever. What do you mean, destroyed forever? If your body expires with me in control, you die as well, but your spirit will not pass on. Your soul will be consumed by my power. A Sakari's power is in its purest form when it becomes a spirit. Anything in a similar state of matter around it is instantly drawn to it and consumed. Can you continue to fight after you die? If enough energy is present for my spirit to consume, it can buy me some extra time. Maybe enough for one last attack to take out whoever destroyed me. A Sakari cannot suffer to be defeated. It's far too much of a dishonor for our surviving family to endure. By killing our killer, we can at least gain enough pride to take our place next to the spirits of our ancestors. Jake blocks his thoughts briefly, causing 4 walls of thick stone to rise up and encircle him. I don't believe him one bit. There must be another reason why he's keeping my soul inside of here. He's blocking most of his memories from me just as I'm doing to him. I've got to figure out how to unlock his thoughts and memories, and try to discover how he was trapped in that pendant. With that information, I might be able to get Rusty to do it to him again, Jake thinks. Danny taps Yamura on the shoulder. They've gone inside. I suggest we confront one of them now, she says. Rusty stands at his locker talking to Amy, Chris, and K-Dog. Unknown to them, danger looms nearby. And then Brad dropped the pass and they plowed him, Rusty laughs. So he fumbled? Asks Chris. At the 10-yard line. That sucks, Chris laughs, grabbing his books and shoving them into his backpack. Yeah, I know. He hasn't come to school at all this week. Mitch said he's too embarrassed, Rusty says. Jeez, it was just a scrimmage. Not like the real schedule even starts for another month or two. But I can't say I feel sorry for him. Karma and such. The guy's a real dickhead. I heard he pissed in all the band tubas last year, Chris says. He took our head basketball cheerleader, convinced her to join the football cheer squad. It was bad for the rest of the girls' morale, K-Dog adds. That one doesn't sound that bad, Chris argues. Oh, he also had sex with her sister, and she had to transfer schools. Yeah, that sounds more like him. Rusty freezes in horror, going pale. Rusty, what is it? Asks Amy. Seeing her boyfriend's body language change, and his face drain of all color. It's Jake, I think. Yamura walks down the hall with Danny by his side. His jacket waves behind him like a black cape with each stride. Hello again, says Danny, winking at Rusty. What are you? Rusty sees beyond Jake's body. A horrible shadow hangs over him. The shadow ripples like a black flame, red eyes dancing and flickering. You do not seem to like to play games, do you? You aren't my cousin. So the question is, who are you? This is really something else. I did not think you would be able to sense the difference. I've been feeling Jake vanish for some time now, but now I can tell that he's completely gone. So, who are you? The others are extremely confused. To them, Jake has just joined the gothic crowd and begun to dye his hair and wear black clothing and makeup. What are you talking about? That is Jake, just in goth mode, asks K-Dog. I know my own cousin, and you aren't him. I don't know who you are. What did you do to him? Are you the reason he's been acting the way he was? Your relative's dark spirit was necessary for my return. Rusty tenses, not knowing if this being that looks like Jake but isn't him is going to attack or not. Your return? Asks Rusty. Search your heart and remember me. Your ancestor had to have imparted his memories to his descendants to help them stop me if I were ever to return. Katal before the Sakari invasion. A bronze-skinned man with light brown hair in his mid-20s kicks open the door to a house to find Enkidu in bed with a young woman. The woman has olive skin like them, but her hair is long and jet black. Cousin, how could you? Shouts Yasion. What do you mean? Asks Enkidu, standing up and putting his pants on. He did not know, says the girl, Taraxame, covering herself up with a wool blanket. Know what? Asks Enkidu in confusion, looking back and forth between them. Yasion is my betrothed, she whispers. What? Shouts Enkidu, nearly falling back in disbelief. He's been coming to this home to know her for over 3 months, and she's never once mentioned that she is taken for another man. But this is not Yasion's dwelling. Whose is it? I purchased it under my father's name so that Yasion would not find out, Taraxame replies. But I did find out, you witch. I followed you when you disappeared this time. Now that you have found me out, I can be rid of you from my life, she replies, her voice cold. You are going to pay for this crime. I cannot believe my own blood has betrayed me, Yasion growls, his fury still building. I just found out. I had no idea. I swear to you, Enkidu pleads. Leave him alone. I want to be with him, not you, Taraxame says, glaring at Yasion. Whore! Do you not recall that we have a child? Do you truly wish to purge your responsibilities? Hisses I have already sent Galen away with my sisters back to Dwarka. They will raise him as their own. He will grow up never having known either of us, Taraxime replies. Because you have understood that you are unfit to be a parent, you dare steal it from me? You are an uncaring, self-absorbed man. I do not love you. You monster, Yasion screams. Because of this, I could not look at him and be reminded of my hatred for you. How dare you do this to me? Return Galen to me. No, I could not love him, just as I cannot love you. Enkidu is a better man than you. Enkidu is appalled at the coldness of Taraxime. It is as if she were a completely different person. Before she was gentle and submissive. Now she tears apart Yasion's heart like a wild animal. She did not want a husband or children. She only wanted the freedom to have sex with whoever she pleased, but the restraints of the culture and religion would not allow her to do so openly. Enkidu now puts the pieces together. In the city of Dwarka, they do not worship the Creator. They do not recognize the existence of the Yazata. The religion of Dwarka is of physical worship through orgies, and it's even rumored to partake in bestiality and human sacrifice. How could have I been so blinded by my own loins? He wonders. Master Hoyles had once warned him that a woman from Dwarka would lead to trouble, but he did not heed. Return my son to me now, hisses Yasion. Never. You will never see him again. What did I do to deserve this terrible fate? To have my only son snatched away from me, Yasion asks in tears. I told you that I did not love you. You should count it as a blessing that I did not dash his head against a rock. Taraxime stands and begins to dress. You are too self-consumed to ever give me the attention that I deserve. And Galen would have only seen your example and grown up to be like you. His fate is now much better not knowing you. Your studies have always taken precedence over me. I have needs, and you could not fulfill them. So I did what I had to do to satisfy myself. Yasion balls his fists and punches a hole through the wall before storming outside. Enkidu follows behind, trying to reason with him. Wait, cousin. I did not know she belonged to another, Enkidu pleads. Yasion turns around, a dark shadow extending from his body. You are no longer my blood. Both of you have betrayed me, and you do not deserve to live in this world. Yasion growls. I will make both of you suffer for this. Rusty stares at Yamura in confusion. What was all of that? Rusty wonders as he snaps out of his daze. Yamura smiles and bares his long, fang-like teeth. I have come to kill you, and all of my vessel's kin. Once you are all dead, only then can I be free to do as I wish. The fire alarm begins to blare loudly. What the hell is this? Shouts Yamura, the sound ringing in his ears. You pulled the fire alarm, says Danny. Yamura gives her a confused look. It's an evacuation measure, Danny replies, the hall filling with running students. Yamura looks over to see his right hand on the alarm. No! He has regained some partial control. I thought you were in complete control, Danny says, mocking him. I was, yet he has willed a part of himself to resist me. 2 security guards come running up. You! Why did you pull the alarm? Shouts one of the guards. Yamura tries to grab the man by the throat but cannot. His hand is unresponsive. We will settle this later, Yamura growls, indicating to Danny that they must retreat. Yamura and Danny disappear down the hall. Who was that? Amy asks. It looked like Jake, but it didn't sound or act like him at all. I don't know. When I find out, I'll tell you, Rusty quietly replies. Was Jake high? Chris asks, extremely confused. What have those goths done to our boy? In the back of the school parking lot, Danny confronts Yamura. What was all that about? Do not mock me, child, growls Yamura, grabbing her by the throat. I think it's time we found a way to get rid of that extra voice in your head, coughs Danny. Yes. I thought he would be more cooperative, He is somehow different from his ancestor. He still has compassion for the others. His ancestor summoned us to destroy the world in his anger and grief, but this fool continues to fight against that outcome. Yasion sits at a cluttered desk with his head in his hands. How could they have done this to me? I trusted him. I trusted them both. Please, I need help. I need guidance. I have to make them pay for what they did to me. In a flash of white light, a figure appears in Yasion's doorway, using the art of Shunkonido. "Who are you?" Yasion asks cautiously. The white-haired visitor brushes his bangs from his eyes and grins. "I am the answer to your prayers. Did you not pray for assistance?" Cedrion asks, handing him an old tome bound in a strange animal hide. "Are you an angel?" Before Yasion can finish, the Yazita is gone. Yasion opens the book. Chapter 1, Verse 1. Whosoever readeth this book be warned. Whosoever performeth any spell in this book with evil in their heart, he is damned above all others, forsaken and rejected, tormented and forever shamed. Water will not quench his thirst, nor will bread and meat sate his hunger. Chapter 1, Verse 2. Even in death he will not find peace. He will be cursed to walk forever with no solace. Neither in heaven nor hell awaits him. He continues reading, flipping through the pages quickly. Something guides him to a particular page, and he stops. Chapter 76, Verse 37. Should the time arise that passage to the world of Averno is needed, say thee these words thrice. What once was, is. Come forth. At the sounding of these words, a gate shall open, and allow the free passage both ways between the worlds for a limited time. Heed these words, my brothers. Do not open the door to Averno, lest you doom the Kishar realm. The magics of the Sakari world may have advanced to be able to keep the gateway open, and it may be impossible to close it back. The only world that I've ever cared about is gone. Let the rest of the world feel my pain, Yasion whispers, resolving to open the portal and bring the Sakari hordes forth. Enkidu stops walking as he comes upon the port city of Dwarka. He's traveled for 3 weeks to reach the city, but for him the goal is worth the effort. Lit torches hang from the buildings, extending a welcoming atmosphere for travelers. As a port city, Dwarka relies heavily on travelers from other cultures and cities. As soon as he steps foot into the city, Enkidu is swarmed by scantily clad women of leisure. "Welcome, Burrito warrior. How may we please you during your stay in Dwarka?" one of the women asks. She is exotic and darker skinned than any woman he's ever seen before. He assumes that the Dwarka ships must bring back women from far-off lands to maintain a wide variety for the travelers. Her accent is thick and curls after each word. He recognizes the word burrita, having heard it used by other traders in the past, as a custom of referring to strangers as friends. "I'm not here to indulge in your city's immorality," Enkidu says, brushing the woman's hands off of him. "I have come to reclaim my nephew so that his soul is not damned by Dwarka's loose ways." A group of men wearing violet robes and strange head coverings approach them. "What's going on here?" one of the men asks. "This Barita visitor has insulted our city and refused to know any of us," the exotic woman says. "Do you not understand our customs, Barita traveler? The women are our gift while you enjoy your stay. We find it helps loosen your money pouch for our city's other indulgences. I am not interested. I've been warned that this city is poisoned, and my soul must steer clear of its vices," Enkidu responds. "How dare you? You come to our city and insult our ways?" "I care not for your godless ways. I'm not here for pleasures of the flesh. I have come to take my nephew Galen, then depart." No citizen of Dwarka may be taken against their will, the man says, drawing a short sword that curves back in on itself. Enkidu has never seen a blade like this before. He is a citizen of Katal Takuk. The child was taken against his father's wishes to this city by relatives of his mother. I do not require your permission. The man lunges at Enkidu, but he sidesteps and quickly draws his own sword. Enkidu rakes the weapon horizontally, with the blunt edge outwards, using the attacker's own momentum to slam into his waist and knock the wind from him. As the man falls, Enkidu pivots and jabs his sword's hilt into the back of the second man's neck, just as he reaches for his weapon. The third man manages to draw his sword, but Enkidu steps towards him and strikes the man's elbow and breaks his arm. The man screams in agony and runs, Enkidu returning his sword to its sheath. As the prostitutes flee in terror, Enkidu makes his way through the city. Even late in the night, the streets are lined with vendors from all corners of the world. "You need kufi, Barida friend," a tall, dark-skinned trader from the lands far to the south asks, holding up a basket of green tea leaves. "No, thank you," Enkidu replies, walking past the stands. Nearby, cream-skinned men of Jiangshun sell rice and gorgeous decorated jewelry. Men in animal skins from the Far East Islands sell bananas and other fruits. Enkidu is not interested in trade. His only concern is finding his nephew and delivering him from this life of evil. Enkidu finally locates the home of Taraxime's family and moves swiftly inside, taking special care not to kill the inhabitants and only render anyone who attacks him unconscious. He punches an older man in the face as he tries to stop him, whom Enkidu guesses is Taraxime's father. He reaches a corner room where a woman looking almost identical to Taraxime sits, rocking Galen in her arms. "No one else need be hurt. Hand me the child," Enkidu says. "You cannot have him," she screams, pulling him away. "He is my kin. I cannot leave him to be raised in this society." Enkidu moves towards her, and she glances to the side to see a knife on the floor. Enkidu follows her gaze and intercepts before she can reach the weapon, kicking her in the face and ripping the child from her arms. As he turns to leave, he spots an altar to the snake god Nyarlathotep. He kicks the altar over and departs from the home. Enkidu heads towards Kataltakuk, moving faster this time as he knows the exact route to follow. He uses up all of the milk he brought along for the child in 3 days, and searches for another city to buy more. As night approaches and Galen cries in hunger, he fears that he will not be able to find a village in time. He begins to pray, asking for the Creator to provide the child with food. Soon afterward, a she-boar wanders past. Enkidu's hand moves to his sword, but the sow is not aggressive at all. The sow lies down beside him, exposing her swollen teats. She must have only recently weaned her piglets. Enkidu thinks in relief and thanks the Creator for his assistance. Enkidu places Galen at the sow's chest, and the boy latches easily. The sow does not fuss, treating the human boy as if he were her own. After feeding, the sow does not leave. She stares at Enkidu, as if waiting for him to figure out what she is thinking. "What is it? What are you trying to tell me?" Enkidu asks the sow. The animal glances at Galen, and then at the empty milk containers lying on the ground beside him. He finally understands, and the sow allows him to fill the bottles up, providing enough milk for them to reach Kataltakuk, believing that because his faith never wavered, the boy never went hungry. Once in the city, and after he has spoken with Amastus and Fausto, Enkidu senses something strange and looks up at the sky to see the clouds being drawn to a single spot outside the city gates. He quickly hurries to the home of a priest named Esquil and his wife, asking his friend to look after Galen until he can return for the boy. "I will return soon, but there is something foul in the air," Enkidu says, running from the home. "We shall pray for your safe return," Esquil replies, holding the young boy close to his chest. "What once was, is. Come forth. What once was, is. Come forth. What once was, is. Come forth," Iasion screams, reciting the words from the book of the Black Earth. The ground quakes violently, and the sky becomes blood red. Soon I will have the power to make those two pay for their betrayal. The tremors subside and Yasion grows impatient. After over an hour has passed since reading from the book, nothing else has occurred. Disappointed, he returns home to see if he performed something incorrectly. It failed, Yasion whispers in defeat. I sought to bring forth a demon into this world and bind it to me as my slave and punish my enemies, but now it appears as if this book is nothing more than a collection of lies. After Yasion returns to the city gates, a small ripple moves through the air until a glowing tear opens up in the dimensional fabric. Too small for a full being to pass through, the tear does not draw any attention. Slowly, the fissure begins to widen. In his mind, Jake drops to the ground in horror and shock. So he really did unleash your kind on the world. Just as you have unleashed me. Everything comes full circle, mortal. No, I didn't want this. I tried to fight it. Is failure not a part of responsibility? Had you succeeded, had you been a little stronger-willed or purer of heart, then maybe your world would not be soon burnt to ash. It's not too late. If I can't stop you, Rusty will, even if that means killing us both. Yamura laughs. My powers have transferred with me to your body, and soon they will be back to their full strength. That whelp stands no chance of defeating me. I cannot be destroyed by a mortal child. He will fall all too quickly. Female, tell me where this Rusty lives. My name is Danny. You need to at least call me by my name. Yamura merely glares at her. Next town over in a place called Absinthe. I'm not sure where in town exactly. We'd have to follow him home. Then we wait and follow our prey to its residence and slaughter it where it feels the most secure. I've screwed up a lot lately, but I have to warn Rusty about this monster. I have to let him know that whatever's in control of my body is not me. But how? Wonders Jake. Katal took out during the invasion. Enkidu kicks down Yasion's door, enraged. What have you done? I have shared my pain with the world. It does not feel good, does it? Taraxime is dead. Your monsters killed her, Enkidu shouts, taking his kin by the shoulders and violently shaking him. What? She's dead? Whispers Yasion, feeling guilt over the death of the woman he once loved. He stumbles and barely manages to steady himself with a hand on the table. You selfish fool! You're responsible for her death, and the lives of everyone else these monsters have taken. Now put them back. I cannot. The door cannot be closed now. Not once it's been opened. You bastard, do something! Enkidu screams, punching Yasion across the face. The blow sends him over the table, but he does not seem to notice, even with the blood now running down his face. We cannot close the door, but we might be able to erect a barrier magically that will seal the area around it and stop any more demons from flooding in. I think I've seen something of the sort here in this book. Yasion begins to search through the book when Fausto is blasted through the wall. The elder magician lies motionless on the floor among the rubble of the wall. He is bleeding, severely beaten, and barely conscious. I managed to knock one of them out of the fight, but he still lives, Fausto coughs. I'm sorry I was not able to hold the other two off longer. Yasion, find a way to close the portal now, shouts Enkidu. Yamura and Inyana walk in through the newly formed hole in the wall. Conspiring against us, smiles Yamura. Like little ants on a piece of wood, scurrying around in panic as it begins to sink into the sea, adds Inyana. You cannot continue this any more, shouts Enkidu, leaping at them and punching Yamura in the face. The blow sends Yamura crashing through the wall and creating another hole. Enkidu turns to attack the others, but Inyana grabs him by the throat. I am the queen of Averno. No pathetic Kishar ape is going to best me. Let go of him, shouts Yasion. What are you going to do? You're not even a warrior, she laughs. I am the ape that set you free, and the one that's going to send you back. Inyana drops Enkidu, interested in Yasion's boast. Enkidu falls to the floor and coughs, gasping for breath. Yasion begins to prepare an incantation, but Inyana's superior speed brings her to him before he can finish. She grabs him by the throat and lifts him off the ground. Is that so? She grins. Your distraction has only traded your life for his. Enkidu lunges from behind, dropping his shoulder into Inyana's ribs, and sends her crashing into the wall. Inyana slams into the wall, breaking through into the street and creating another hole. This causes the building to cave in all around them. Enkidu manages to bring his arms up over his head in defense as the building rains down on them. He sits up from the rubble, covered in debris. He looks to the side to see a large wooden beam lying over Inyana, who lies motionless. Yasion, can you hear me? While she's down, send them back. Seal off the doorway. I told you, I cannot send them back. Yasion stops, his voice trailing off into a gurgle. He looks down to see a hand through his chest. You are not sending us back anywhere, human, says Yamura. Yamura pulls his hand free, and Yasion falls to his face, blood trailing from his wound. You monster! Screams Enkidu, leaping at Yamura and nailing him with several solid blows to the face. Yamura flies back, crashing into the rubble. Yasion, Enkidu says, rushing to the side of his kinsman. Please forgive me. Yasion coughs up blood, his color fading. Shh, save your strength. Take the book. Inside, there's a spell to trap powerful essences. I may have not been able to do it, but with a real magician you can. Construct holding devices. The book tells how. Then seal them inside. Throw them in the portal and then close it off. You'll need 7 magicians in a circle to perform the spell to close the gateway. Yasion hands Enkidu the book and begins to drool blood. I hope the next time we meet, I'll be more like you, says Yasion, his eyes rolling back and his head dropping to the side lifeless. Enkidu screams in fury, pounding the ground until his fists become bloody. He clutches the book to his chest tightly. He notices that Inyana has begun to stir, and he begins to frantically search the rubble for Fausto. He finally manages to grab the magician and pull him up. Slinging Fausto over his shoulder, Enkidu dashes out into the alley and disappears into the night. Inyana pushes the wooden beam off her chest and curses as she sees her armor is bent and no longer fits. She tears off her armor and stands up and finds her brother still unconscious. She reaches down and angrily pulls Yamura to his feet by an arm. Once again, he's gotten away from us, she explains to him. No matter, Yamura says, brushing himself off. It's only a matter of time before he runs out of places to hide from us. He looks over at the corpse of Yasion with satisfaction. The human that brought us here is dead. Now there's no one left alive that can send us back. Inyana is less comforted by this. And if they are able to somehow close the gateway, how are we to get back home? Yamura grins. I'm not concerned with that. My focus is only upon this world and our conquest of it. Unlike you, I still have things tying us to our home. I desire to see my offspring once again. I refuse to be trapped in this world. We will kill these humans and return to Nahrain triumphant, Inyana says. They are most likely to attempt to find refuge where they can read from that spellbook they recovered from this home. Have your magical senses returned to full scope? Inyana shakes her head. Sensing their magical power, even while they're performing a spell, will prove difficult, even if they were within my eyesight right now. I know that our magic is all from the same source, yet everything still feels so strange and awkward to my senses. It will take me quite some time to acclimate. Then our only option is to continue moving house to house, raiding each spot of refuge, and leaving them with nowhere else to turn. Hui enters through a hole in the wall, rubbing his head. What did I miss? Did you kill them? Inyana pushes past the Grand General in irritation. Come on, we have more buildings to burn down and humans to kill. Try not to be so worthless this next time, Yamura sneers as he too pushes past. Hui grinds his teeth in anger, balling his fists so tightly that they begin to bleed. You shall soon get what you deserve, Yamura. I promise you that, Hui thinks. The book that my ancestor used to open the portal must be the same one that they used to fuse Yamura to my body. If I can somehow get it to Rusty, he might have a shot at stopping this body snatcher, thinks Jake. Jake's mind begins to drift as he juggles between fearing the worst and the faint hope that he'll be able to stop Yamura in the end. He envisions Yamura killing his family and friends 1,000 times for every once that he can think of a way to prevent such things. He wishes that he could have a chance to go back, to undo all the terrible things he did to lead him to this point. He knows that it's a vain wish, that life does not work that way, yet he does not know what else to do. An ancient demon general is driving his body around with the intent to find and murder every single member of his family. If he hadn't been consumed so much by jealousy, if he had controlled himself just a tiny bit more, then maybe he would have been able to fight off Yamura's influence. Now he must accept that things have happened the way they have. He must find a way to make a bad situation better. If he cannot stop Yamura directly, he will have to find another way. Rusty sits in class, staring blankly at the chalkboard. What was that thing? It looked sort of like Jake, but it felt so cold. It even moved differently, and the voice was off slightly. My fears were true. Something bad did happen to Jake. But if that thing is him, how can I stop him without doing something awful to Jake in the process? He talked about ancestors and killing his vessel's kin. What did he mean by all of that? Rusty is unable to concentrate properly in class, his thoughts drifting back to his early encounter with Jake. Enkidu rests against a tree, setting Fausto on the ground beside him. After a few minutes, the magician begins to regain consciousness. What happened? Fausto whispers. We survived another attack from the demons. Were your fears correct? Was your kin responsible? Enkidu nods slowly. Did he give you anything to help, or was he unrepentant? Fausto asks, standing up and using the tree to remain stable. He wished to help. I think he gave us something. I honestly have not taken the time to investigate it, Enkidu replies, handing Fausto the Book of the Black Earth. Fausto flips through the pages, scanning for anything helpful. Why is this book written in Yazatan? I do not know. My kin was in possession of it. I do not know from where he obtained it. He used it to open the doorway to the demon world. Your Yazata is better than mine, but after the details how to open the portal, it also does have a way to reverse it. It only takes one magician to open the gateway, but the energy required to erect a new barrier needs 7. It will take us time to gather that many magicians. I only know of 2 others in all of Katal to cook, and one of them is merely an apprentice. We are going to have to send word to the other cities and call for aid. We must stop the demons here, or they will spread out and consume the entire world. The sun begins to rise. We've been running from them all night. There's no telling how many their soldiers have killed in that time. Enkidu whispers. We cannot afford to think of such things. We must focus on stopping their strongest warriors, then turn to closing the portal. Fausto leads them to the dwelling of the town's other magician, Ismail, and his apprentice, of only 10 and 4 years, Samion. They are quickly led into the home of the magician, who casts a concealment spell after they enter, covering the door with false trees and shrubs. Fausto, Enkidu, It is good to see that you're still counted among the living. I've killed dozens of these demons, but it does not seem like there's an end to them. Have you by chance located their source? Ismail asks. Yes, it is outside the city gates. A portal to the demon world was opened up in the night by his cousin Yacian, Fausto replies. Why? Why would anyone do such a thing? Simeon whispers. It does not matter, Ismail interrupts, seeing the pain in Enkidu's face. Enkidu, you are a powerful warrior, are you not? Enkidu nods, still thinking of all the lives that have been stolen because of his meeting Taraxime. He tries not to feel guilty about it, as he did not know she belonged to another, but guilt sometimes has a habit of not adhering to logic. He wishes he could go back and never have met the temptress, but he knows that is impossible. Now he can only fight to prevent any more damage to occur from the situation. We will need all of our wits about us. Can you endure? Ismail asks. Yes, I'm sorry, Enkidu replies, shaking off his thoughts. We have encountered their fiercest. There are a handful of officers commanding the lower forces. There were 5 originally, but we have managed to eliminate 2 of them, Fausto says. We must take out the 3 remaining commanders if we are able to gain the breathing room needed to reach the portal and close it, Ismail says, stroking his long beard. Speaking of which, do you have any idea of how to perform this feat? Fausto sets the Book of the Black Earth on Ismail's study table, beside a candle and several parchments. Ismail investigates the book, and his breath is caught in his throat. Where did you attain this? He whispers. It is what my kinsman used to open the portal. We can also use it to seal the breach, Enkidu declares. Ismail nods, flipping through the pages. We will still need much more aid. 7 magicians are required to close the portal. Yes, we know. That is why we have sought you out, Fausto says. I think I can get word to a few friends in Levant. It will take upwards of a day for the hawks to reach them, Ismail says, uncovering a cage containing several specially trained message-carrying birds of prey. It will take another day longer for them to arrive. We are looking at having to buy at least 2 days before we can even begin to try and close that portal. Send the messages. We will do what we must to buy that time, Enkidu says. There is no need for that. Foolishly trying to fight them to buy time will only sacrifice your life. We may need you to protect us while we perform the spell to close the portal, so keeping us all alive is a priority, Ismail argues. But we have a few options. Fausto, did you see the binding spells detailed out by the Yazata to contain traitors? Those should be strong enough to restrain a demon. I did not, Fausto replies, leaning over to look at the book with his peer. Together, the 2 of us should be able to perform one of these more complicated defensive spells. If we can contain them, we may be able to wait out the remainder of the time. Please do so with haste. Every minute we delay, they are out there murdering more innocents, Enkidu says. Inyana and her 2 remaining generals walk down the main street, their lower forces still pillaging homes around them. We have searched for hours. They have once again vanished, Hui growls. Inyana has had enough. She casts a spell to broadcast her voice loudly over the entire city. Cowards! Because you cannot fight us directly and must hide, we are going to begin killing on a scale you have not yet seen. I will personally kill 100 humans every hour that you do not show yourselves, Inyana screams. Enkidu draws Tiavan and runs towards the door, hearing the Sakari's threat. You cannot go, not yet, Ismail says, grabbing his arm. Enkidu swats his hand away. I will not have the blood of those innocents on my conscience. Do what you must to prepare. You will find me and the demons when you are ready. Enkidu runs off to challenge the Sakari once more. He has a good heart, but he is very reckless, Ismail sighs. He is young, Fausto replies with a shrug. Enkidu reaches the Sakari, sword already outstretched. I knew that would get your attention, Inyana grins. I did not think that one with such a sickening honor such as you would allow so much blood to be shed. You creatures have no honor, Enkidu replies. Angered, Inyana lunges at him, slashing horizontally with her claws. Enkidu blocks with his sword, the impact skidding him backwards. Hui leaps from the side, bringing his own sword down across Enkidu's shoulder. Enkidu twists just in time for the blade to graze him, and he punches the Sicari in the side of the face. Inyana thrusts forward, and Enkidu is forced to drop his blade down vertically to block her advance. Yamura stands back, watching the fight and studying Enkidu's movements. "Feel free to join any time, brother," Inyana growls. Yamura folds his arms across his chest. "I wish to gain a better understanding of his technique. He has survived our assaults enough times, but I must rethink our strategy against him." Inyana manages to rake her claws across Enkidu's left thigh and cheek. He pivots, backhanding her. Inyana staggers back, cradling her nose as it sprays blood. "Bastard!" she screams, leaping at him with both claws. Inyana hits a wall of pink-colored energy that knocks her to the ground. "What is this?" she screams, thrashing at the energy, but unable to break through. Ismail, Fausto, and Simeon run up behind Enkidu. "It worked, but we do not know for how long. We do not have the time to truly test the barrier out," Ismail says, out of breath. Enkidu thanks them, glad they came to help him instead of allowing more innocents to be killed. They turn to run, but their path is blocked by a wall of flames. Inyana laughs loudly, lowering her hand. "Our magic is much older than yours, humans," she grins, punching a hole through the energy barrier and shattering it into millions of tiny shimmers of light. Chains wrap around Inyana's feet and she falls to the ground. Fausto follows up his attack, conjuring a massive fist above the Sicari. The fist drives down into her back, the force swelling out into a crater around her. Fausto pivots, throwing his middle and index fingers of his left hand to his lips. "Biasi Mimiashan," Fausto quickly chants, conjuring a stone wall to surround the other two powerful Sicari warriors. Before they can leap above the wall, Ismail caps it with the second phase of Fausto's spell. A 14-foot thick stone lid appears over them, sealing the Sicari inside. "Come, that will not hold them," Ismail shouts. Inyana rises from the crater, violet sparks of energy crackling around her body. "Hilch, Memilth, Jonth." Inyana growls and begins casting a spell. Enkidu rushes forward, slashing at Inyana with his sword and forcing her to leap backwards in evasion. "Degna, Falbit!" Fausto and Ismail shout in unison, putting all of their remaining energy into a powerful barrier spell. A wall of glowing energy seals the street, cutting Inyana and everything behind her off. The wall encircles the other Sicari so that they will all become trapped. Inyana casts spell after spell, trying in vain to remove the enchantment. With each failure, her anger increases. Yamura is amused by his sister's frustration, but his own desire to kill Enkidu and the others fuels his need to break the barrier. He sends a group of soldiers to scout the perimeter of their confinement, and remains calm. Losing his nerve like Inyana would only bring disaster to their forces, and the army's morale as they look up to him in guidance. "These humans are much more clever than you led us to believe," Yamura says to his sister. "I advised caution, but you would not heed my counsel." Inyana rolls her eyes, sitting down in the middle of the street. "Save your self-righteous bullshit, Yamura. I am not in the mood to put up with your mouth." "Is it not the duty of your generals to provide you with our strategic advice?" Yamura asks. "The humans merely caught us off guard," Hui interrupts. "This is not indicative of their strength as a whole." "Are you truly mad?" Yamura asks with a forced laugh. "We have struggled against a single human and been unable to prevail. He has killed 2 of our generals and made a mockery of the strength we considered elite." "The warrior did not trap us with his spell," Inyana speaks up. "The human mages imprisoned us." "You do nothing to disprove my observations. If 2 weaker men with only moderate magical skill could do this to us, what then would occur should we ever run into a truly gifted magician?" Yamura argues. "Impossible," This is the height of human magic, Inyana argues. You do not know that. Arrogance is preventing you from considering the humans to be far more formidable than any of us expected. I absolutely will not concede that point because it is not factual. The strength of this human warrior is an outlier, a singular nuisance. Once we have gotten rid of him, the rest of this world will fall much more easily, Inyana says. Yamura sits down, exhausted from trying to argue with his elder sister. Again, we do not know this. We cannot just take your hunches for universal truths. Remember your place, General, Hui cautions. Inyana may be your sister, but she is also our queen, and her word is the law. Yamura laughs, drawing both of their ire. I have not forgotten who pulls at King Marduk's strings. Only a fool would think that imbecile was truly in charge of anything. Many of the soldiers overhear their argument, and whispers spread throughout their ranks. Silence yourself, Yamura, lest I do it for you, Inyana threatens. Folding his arms, the general merely grunts in reply and closes his eyes to rest. My queen, can you not see the Yazatan symbols in your vision that make up their crude spellwork? Hui asks. Focusing only on the arcane, Inyana is able to see the spell's blueprint encircling them like a glowing hieroglyphic web. Yet try as she might, she cannot separate the symbols from each other. Perhaps the field of magic is slightly altered here, similar to the atmosphere, Inyana says, trying to explain her failure. It will take me longer to fully adjust to this world before I am able to manipulate its elements with any mastery. Yamura scoffs. You keep saying that, but nothing changes. Hui ignores him and turns towards their tired army. Use your swords as shovels and begin to dig. If we cannot break through this barrier, nor are we able to deconstruct it, maybe we can dig beneath it to free ourselves. They're exhausted, Yamura says. Allow them some rest. They've been battling the humans ceaselessly for over a day. Hui glares at him. When did you become so soft? They can work in shifts, but time is too valuable for us to sit by and do nothing. If you find this task so important, why not show initiative and begin digging yourself? Yamura says with a grin, tossing a sword over to Hui's feet. Enough, Inyana screams, tired of their constant arguing. Start digging, all of you. The army complies, and one by one the tips of their blades plunge into the earth. Inyana glares at Yamura and Hui, prompting the generals too to begin excavation. It is of no use, a tired soldier complains. The magic seeps too far into the ground. Inyana walks over to inspect their hole. The energy of the bear does indeed carry deep into the earth. Keep digging. It cannot go forever. We're not going to be able to do this alone, Enkidu says. While they are contained, we should try to organize some kind of city-wide defense. What do you propose? Ismail asks. We had a city guard, but I do not think any of them survived. You will not find much success organizing the civilians, with yourself being the only trained warrior. Would they rather have no chance of survival at all? I do not understand the apprehension. People, full of fear, do not always think logically, Ismail says. Enkidu notices one of the city elders waving towards them frantically. I will try to speak with the elders. If anyone can organize the city, it will be they. Fausto laughs. I shall pass. I have no more faith in the leadership of this city than I do in my own priestly endeavors. We will return to the Yazata book and search for anything inside that may be more helpful. We still require several days for even an answer to come from the cities, and that barrier spell will not last forever. The aid of the people we have asked is not even guaranteed. We require something more, Ismail says. Enkidu enters the building with the city elder and finds that several other elders and their families have gathered together inside. Originally comprised of 12 members, the elders meet to discuss important matters and set the rules and doctrines for all of Katal to follow. Currently, 8 members of the council are present, with 3 killed by the Sicarii, including captain of the guard Amastus, and the remaining member, the priest Esquiel, unaccounted for. How many of our city guard remain? Asked Kisura, the city potter. Most of our guardsmen were felled in defense of the wall. After the initial breach, we have been unable to stop the advance of the demons throughout the city. Vingen, the city blacksmith, says. What of Captain Amastus? Is he still alive? Tiao, the city's master builder, asks. Rin, the granary trustee, shakes his head slowly. The captain was felled in battle by the female leader of the invaders shortly after we lost control of the wall. But do we still have enough of the guard to prevail? Tiao asks. A guardsman with bandages wrapped around his head and ribs speaks up. Too few remain to hold the city. Once the wall was breached and Captain Amastus was felled, we were quickly overwhelmed. I do not believe there are any left in better condition than I. What kind of total losses are we looking at so far? Vingen asks. Many homes have been ravaged by the demons. I would presume that nearly everyone that has been in their direct path is no longer among the living, Tiao says. That is not true, Tannen, the city baker, says. I have seen firsthand that they take the majority of our women and children as prisoners. They have a substantially large slave caravan. We need to come up with a plan of some kind. The longer we collect data before acting, the more death those creatures will spread. We know next to nothing about our enemy, Rin says. We do not know from where they came, or what they even truly want. It is clear what they want, Vingen shouts. They want us to die. Are there none that can still stand and fight against this threat and defend our city? Tiao asks, terror shaking his voice. Enkidu Hyaelura still fights, Tannen says. His will has not yet left him. He will not abandon us so long as he still draws breath. It is true, Enkidu speaks up. I fight on, with the aid of my friends. Not even you, Enkidu, can stand up to this horror. Our city is doomed, and we are bound for servitude or death, Damask, city purser, argues. Have you never seen him in battle? He has already slain 2 of their officers, and left scores of their other soldiers for dead. Our efforts must revolve around supporting Enkidu's efforts and ensuring his success, Tannen argues. Tannen, your bias on this matter clouds your counsel, Rin says. Sam Hyaelura was your friend, and his son remains close to your family. I agree with Damask that Enkidu stands no chance against this threat. He is not entirely wrong, Enkidu says shamefully. We cannot do this alone. We need assistance in order to combat the enemy effectively. Who would you send to fight them? Tannen asks the others. Katal Takuk houses no greater warrior than Enkidu. Enkidu, please enlighten us with your plan, Damask says mockingly. What would you have us do? I am working with Fausto and Ismail to petition aid from our neighboring cities, Enkidu replies. Ismail has sent a number of messenger hawks to Levant, Jericho, Ramash, Samsara, Muria, and Naya. That is all you have? We put our trust in the warrior priests to protect this city, and your only solution is to ask other cities for help? Damask asks, incensed. We cannot last that long, Rin shouts. It will take days for help to arrive. We have the demons contained for now. Fausto and Ismail erected a barrier that is holding the bulk of their forces from proceeding any further, Enkidu explains. Fausto is not dependable. He is a drunkard and a failed priest. We cannot put trust in anything he has erected, Vingen says. I saw him set 2 of the demons ablaze with but a single word, Tiao says. I believe his magic's to be authentic. I too have seen him fight against the invaders. Perhaps the combined power of Enkidu and the magicians will be enough, Oost, the town planner, says. You are living in a fantasy, Rin shouts. 3 men cannot defeat an army. I have no illusions of such, Enkidu admits. We will not be able to do this on our own. We need every man and woman that can fight to take up arms and join together with us. We must be prepared to make our stand, should the barrier fall. None of us will volunteer to die. Those creatures are invincible. We must abandon the city and flee, Rin argues. I, for one, do not intend to stay idle, Tannen says. I shall find a sword amongst the slain and defend my home. If we all do our part, we can prevail. We already tried that before, Damask says. Every able-bodied man was sent to the wall, and it was still breached. We lost so many good men with that defeat. That is because cowards like you ran to leave the captain and his guard alone to be overrun by the enemy, Tannen growls. We must agree on a course of action, Damask interrupts. How do we not know the invaders are civil peoples and cannot be negotiated with? If they require resources, perhaps we can barter with them. If we can end the violence, we must attempt anything. They are not people at all, Enkidu shouts. Have you not seen them yourselves with your own eyes? Their skin is unnatural, and they possess claws and horns. They are demons called the Sakari, from another world entirely. They have come to conquer us. There will be no negotiations. Not all peoples are the same. The Nanimbians and the Ak are as black as the night sky. The Zhangshang's eyes are different shape than ours, and their bodies are a much smaller build. The Rephrahim are giants and cannibals. Maybe these invaders are just from the far edge of the world, Damask argues. Several of the other prominent community leaders consider this. I say we gather all the gold and valuables we can find in the city and make an offering of peace. The invaders will see this gesture as an action of peace, and perhaps we can become allies and end this meaningless death. I cannot believe what I am hearing, Enkidu shouts. You intend to reward the demons with gold and jewelry for killing our people and burning our homes? You and your drunken companion offer us no better alternative, Damask says. I truly wish I were drunk right now, and all this were but a hallucination. Unfortunately, this nightmare is all too real. Fausto and I have been lucky enough to fight against many of these creatures and survive. Our enemy is organized and disciplined. They will accept your gift and behead you with smiles upon their faces. What you say is conjecture, Damask argues. We do not know for sure. They are not reasonable beings. I saw several of them eating people, Tiao says. They are animals. These are not mindless beasts we are dealing with. They represent a culture as advanced, if not more so, than our own. They're not a band of roving marauders. They are members of a militarized occupational force, utilizing tactics and strategy we've never before seen, Enkidu argues. More panic spreads throughout the villagers gathered together with the elders for safety. We do not have our own army. How can we defend against an army? We must abandon the city and flee. That will not work. The rear gates have been taken by the enemy and are no longer safe. Anyone that attempts to escape will only run to their deaths, Enkidu says. If a group of us can hold off the main force, a second group could possibly take the rear gates. That might give an opportunity for some of our women and children to escape, rather than become slaves or worse, the injured guardsman suggests. Secure the gate first, then come back to us. You will not convince any of us to throw our lives away needlessly, Damask says. Needlessly? We must all be prepared to meet our ends if we want to save our people. Avoiding conflict will not work. They're an experienced military. They know exactly what they're doing. They have cut off our escape paths and begun burning the city down, herding us all in the same direction, where they can surround and overwhelm the last of us, Enkidu argues. Then go out there and do your job, warrior priest. Kill them. Is your god not powerful enough to protect us anymore? With Eskiel presumed among the dead, we no longer have to listen to the brain-dead filth of the priesthood in our decision-making, Damask says. The god of the demons must surely be greater than yours, right? Rin asks. Their god is giving them victory over us, while we are being slaughtered like fat pigs, and your god does nothing to stop the slaughter. Do not say such blasphemous things. The Creator will only protect us if we maintain our faith, Enkidu says. Bah, Damask scoffs. Putting conditions on how and if he will save his people does not sound like a very powerful god. I am losing them, Enkidu worries. Forgive me for not being able to properly elaborate your will. We shall continue on with the plan to speak with the invaders and give them our offering of peace. Diplomacy will be the solution to our dire situation, Damask says. You do not speak for all of us. I strongly advise against that course of action. The invaders are evil and will not reason with us, Tannen says. I agree. I, for one, will not subjugate myself or my family to the enemy. I would rather fight and die, Kisura says. Bashan, head stablemaster, nods in agreement. The enemy cannot be trusted. It is Enkidu and the priests that cannot be trusted. They had one duty and failed us all. It is now up to our decision-making to save Katal-Takuk. Not you or your god, Damask says. How could these invaders have remained hidden for so long, without any of us having encountered one before? Tiao asks. Wherever they originate, it cannot be from anywhere nearby, Damask says. I already told you they come from another world. Before they attacked, I saw strange clouds in the sky, and the air tasted of the blackest of magics. Damask scoffs. Magic? If this is all caused by magic, then why have your priests been unable to stop them yet? Despite his personal flaws, Fausto's skill as a magician is above reproach, Oost argues. They must be incredibly powerful and beyond even his ability. When I first returned from Dwarka, the foul aura of black magic was strongest at the home of my kinsman, Iasion, Enkidu argues. If that wretch is responsible for this mess, we need to hang him from the highest tree we can find in the city. He has damned us all, Rin shouts. That will not be necessary, Enkidu says with sadness. Iasion has already been killed by the demons. They attacked us from the south and the west, coming from the direction of Benares and the Yehuda. We should send our fastest riders out to Muria, Samsara, and Naya. Surely horsemen will reach aid much faster than hawks, Bashan suggests. Enkidu's eyes light up at the suggestion. It is possible, but we need riders and more men to clear the rear gate, enough to give them an opening to ride out. We will commit no such allocation of precious resources. The horses may be needed for our escape, Damask says. Bashan ignores Damask. You may utilize all the horses at my stables. My daughter will also be among the riders. No one is faster than her on horseback. Lanlim steps forward, and Enkidu is pleased that the promising young woman is still among the living. Were he to choose anyone to be his successor as a warrior priest of the city, it would be her. Fine. Go off to your deaths. We will not volunteer for suicide, Damask growls. I am not asking on any of you to rely on me or my strength. I am not even asking on you to rely on the power of the Creator. Each of us must stand on our own 2 feet and fight back however we can. I shall take whoever wishes to fight with me to thin out the enemy numbers at the gates and give our riders a chance to flee. If you are confident in your riding, come with me. We cannot abandon our city in its greatest time of need. There is still a chance to save Katal-Takuk, Enkidu says, making one last plea for help. We will continue to do all that we can, Tiao says. Pray for the survival of our people. I have never ceased my prayers for this city, Enkidu says with a nod. Of the elders, only Tanin, Bashan, and Kisura follow Enkidu's plan. Various other citizens step forward to join the fight, including the teenage son of Vingan, Nairobi. The other elders murmur in disagreement, but Enkidu begins to plan with a small group of volunteers before leaving for Bashan's stables. Having unsuccessfully petitioned the city elders for aid, Enkidu now looks out beyond Bashan's stables as the 10 men and women he has chosen as the city's fastest and most capable riders get ready for the most dangerous journey of their lives. He knows that many, if not all of them, will likely never return to see their homes. Try to spread yourselves out as soon as possible and push your horses to use their full speed from the onset. We cannot have their archers having the time to pick out their targets from a group, Enkidu warns. The riders are nervous, fumbling with their horses, trying to load the minimal provisions necessary to reach their destinations. To maximize speed, no leather saddles are used, and the riders wear only simple cloth and no extra armor for protection. The arrows that will soon be assailing them will encounter no resistance, should they strike. Can you not take out the enemy before we are in the open? Lianlim asks. Despite being sought out by many of Katal Takuk's bachelors, Lianlim's interests lie only in 2 things, horses and archery. She has no time for love or starting a family, and as such, she is the city's speediest rider. I cannot see the archers from their hidden positions within the forest. The only way that we are going to be able to hit them will be to provide them targets. A thin stable boy named Ephron freezes in terror. Some of us are just going to be fodder, right? Enkidu nods sadly. Everyone must try to break through, but it will be unavoidable for us to not suffer some casualties. A muscular cavalryman for the city guard named Salinger laughs. Pray that you can outride me, boy. I shall be the first to breach their line. This is not some competition of your manliness, Lianlim growls. The fate of our city rests upon us reaching the neighboring peoples and bringing them to our aid. Salinger only laughs harder. Your manliness is never in question, Lianlim. The young woman begins to smile confidently. So long as you know your place behind me. Bashan grabs Lianlim by the back of her hair and presses his forehead against hers. Use your wits, and do not become overconfident. Lianlim nods. Yes, father. I will ride faster than I ever have before, and all of my shots will hit their marks without fail, I promise. Another 15 villagers stand on either side of the rear gates to the city, awaiting Enkidu's signal. As soon as the riders pass, the villagers will watch the trees for activity and attempt to snipe the enemy archers from their hidden positions. The city's provisions for war are slim, and most of the arrows are crude workings made in haste. Enkidu is unsure if the tips of the arrowheads will be able to penetrate the superior Sakari armor. It is time, Enkidu says. May the blessings of the Creator of all protect you and guide each of you back home safely. Lianlim slings a pack of arrows onto her back before grabbing her bow and mounting her horse. I need you to focus on speed, not shooting. You are the best hope of outriding the enemy, Enkidu says. I need you not to be weighed down. Lianlim refuses. I am also a better shot than anyone you have at our backs. I will be safer clearing my own path. Given the signal, the gates are opened, and the riders rush forth. Not seconds after emerging, one of the lead riders is felled by an arrow through the right eye. Lianlim quickly nocks an arrow and looses it into the darkness. An inhuman screech results, and she gives Enkidu a quick glance back with an air of cockiness. The other villagers take up positions outside the city walls, firing arrows almost blindly into the trees. The Sakari snipers fell many, striking men down screaming and maimed. Enkidu charges the enemy atop Kiedes, rushing headlong into the danger. Another rider is toppled from his horse with several arrows buried deeply into his chest. Screaming with fury, Enkidu charges forward, spurring the remaining riders onward. Arrows fill the air like deadly rain, stabbing into the ground all around them. Salinger's horse topples, with multiple arrows in her, throwing the man to the dirt. Groaning with pain, Salinger quickly dives behind his wounded horse for cover as it struggles to move, as even more arrows stick into its flesh. "It appears you are going to win this race, Lianlim," Salinger shouts, arrows whirring past his face. Lianlim leans to the left, firing another arrow into a sniper in the dark. "That was never in doubt. Now, since you cannot ride, make yourself useful and kill some of those bastards before I return." "I should have chosen a sturdier horse," Salinger laughs. Blood stains the man's teeth as 2 arrows have embedded in his own back, unknown to Lianlim. Salinger screams with fury and charges towards the trees. He knows that the injuries he has suffered cannot be survived, and chooses to give his final moments towards helping his fellow riders have a better opportunity at escaping. He nearly reaches the tree line, before 4 more arrows to the chest finally bring him down. Ephraim and an older man named Sepre lead the way, breaching the tree line and entering the open path towards the grasslands leading to Muria. Another rider makes it past the tree line, just as Mercutius, the owner of the city's other stables, is dropped by an arrow through the neck. Lianlim swings her legs to the other side of her horse and leans back, firing an arrow through the heart of the sniper. Nairobi draws a long sword, scavenged from a fallen Sakari, and rushes the tree line behind Lianlim. He leads the charge with a shout of fury, followed by 3 other armed men. The archers are still in disarray after Lianlim's attack, and Nairobi is able to slay 2 of them quickly before they are able to organize a counter-offensive. One of the villagers behind him is finally felled with an arrow to the chest, and Nairobi again screams before cleaving the Sakari's head with a powerful slash. Multiple arrows bury themselves in the front of Kiades, and Enkidu is forced to dive from his injured horse and tackle a Sakari archer, burying his sword into his chest. "Ride! Do not stop until you reach your destinations! Ride for Katal Takuk!" Enkidu shouts, ripping his sword free and slashing through another Sakari sniper. Enkidu runs along the firing line, using the trees as cover to deflect most of the arrows of the frightened archers. As snipers, the Sakari archers are less skilled in swordplay than their fellow soldiers, and the warrior priest is easily able to make short work of them and move closer to securing the city's rear gate. Enkidu hacks through the Sakari with savage abandon, taking out his anger and sadness on the enemy forces. With the path cleared, the other villagers drop their bows and take up the spears and swords of the fallen Sakari to press their attack. The villagers are able to overwhelm the Sakari and completely remove their presence from the city's rear gates. Enkidu returns to the side of his horse, looking down in sadness at his long faithful companion. Kiades has already stopped breathing, 7 arrows buried in the equine's chest. Kneeling beside the animal, Enkidu gently strokes the horse's velvety nose. He knows there's no time for mourning, and quickly unstraps his gear from the steed. The village around him are busy looting the dead for weapons and armor. Return to the city and begin evacuating everyone through this gate. Go home to home and search for women and children still in hiding, Enkidu shouts. "Where will we go?" a man asks, taking a long sword from a dead Sakari and tossing aside his crude pike. "Hide the young with the old in the hills and return to fight. We must not give up hope that our city can still be saved," Enkidu answers. He suddenly feels the concussion of another coordinated attack on the barrier by the Sakari commanding officers. "Hurry, before the demons retake this exit. We have no more opportunity to escape." Nairobi and several others stay behind. "We will not run, Enkidu. We wish to take the fight to the enemy." Enkidu nods. "The enemy will soon bring that barrier down. You will get your battle, all too soon."